Hi everyone, welcome to Deadhouse, and I am here today with some exciting news. This is the exciting news!
Hi!
Jennifer's back, and now that she's back, and we're getting ready to start the club.
Yay!
We're not starting tonight. We're going to ease into it.
Right.
So for today, as like a bit of a comeback, get back together, announce the new book. The date for when we're going to like officially start is going to be right here on the screen because we're filming this in such an advanced moment that I can't even tell you. But it'll be right there, so you will 100% know, and I might even splice in some audio later over like not matched moving lips that says the date out loud. We'll see how fancy I get.
Right. We're preparing to be operating on somebody else's schedule, and that boss is relentless. So we are going to film and keep to a schedule as best as possible.
Yes.
And we're really excited to be back.
We are super excited to be back. And to ease into things, we figured we would continue our ventriloquist dummy conversation.
Yeah.
Because I did that as the last bonus video while
Yes.
Jennifer was away,
Uh-huh.
leading up to this. But like all good things, we need more discussion. And Jennifer's got a few episodes from different shows that she would like to talk about that also involve that main theme.
There's a bunch of shows, as it turns out, that have dummy episodes. It's kind of like the classic, let's do a musical episode that...
Yeah, or like, everybody shrinks, or here's your evil twin.
Yeah, like, just like an episode that kind of, the topic goes from like different series.
And of course, I couldn't talk about Buffy without Jennifer, because we grew up doing Buffy together.
We have.
We would like phone each other on commercial breaks to like be like, oh my god, the revelations.
Did you see what?
And it's like, it's coming back, and we just hang up on each other.
The finale though, the finale had me wrecked.
Yes.
Wrecked.
Well, every season finale had me wrecked because
Yeah.
each season was a journey.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to bring it back to the beginning for this one because Buffy does a really good dummy episode.
Oh yes, and that one repeated on TV I think a couple months ago.
Oh, really? I don't have cable, so I can't tell.
It was on, I think it was Space. I've got my PVR set up to record because I have a lot of time home now. They started from the beginning of season one and went right on through.
So, season 1, episode 9, The Puppet Show is what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah.
And what's so great about that episode is that at this point it's well established because it's the mid to late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
That every single show pretty much has its dummy episode, especially if it's paranormal or supernatural.
Yeah.
And this one tackles the dummy type episode really early on, and it does something very different because it takes a lot of those tropes that you've seen with the dummy and how the dummy's evil,
Mm-hmm.
and it turns it completely on its head, which is a lot of fun.
This is one of my favorite episodes. It's so well done, and that dummy is so funny.
And the character interaction, too,
Mm-hmm.
is just hilarious.
Yeah.
So it's based around the school is giving a talent show.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Sid is a dummy. You're made to think, well, of course, the dummy is evil, or more practically, because they're not into this whole inanimate objects can move thing yet,
Yeah.
they think likely the man controlling the dummy is the evil one.
Yeah. But, you know, dolls being evil is a trope that's well explored in horror movies and thrillers and all the, like...
The setup for it being evil, or at least the guy being evil, is really, really good. Except, twist, the guy gets killed.
He does.
And we find out the dummy is alive, but he's not evil.
No.
I mean, he's all the other terrible things you hear about ventriloquist dummies and, of course, ventriloquist dummy comedians.
Right.
There's that old stereotype of, like, you know, they usually make them kind of lecherous and, like, weird, creepy old men characters.
Mm-hmm.
Usually that was a stick that was particularly popular in the 50s and 60s with the ventriloquism.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, you do the waterfall trick and stuff like that. And
Classic classic.
So when he comes to life, it turns out it's not an act.
No, it's more like a PG version of Annabelle. Instead of a demon or a negative spirit being trapped inside of a doll, it's
just a lecherous old guy.
Yeah.
Which is like still pretty terrible. Let's be real.
Isn't he a hunter?
He is.
Yeah.
So the thing is, he's actually on the same team as Buffy,
Mm-hmm.
and over the years he's learned to be a bit less lecherous, but also Buffy's like, yeah, you're kind of a creep, dude. Work on that.
He's a little crude.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he is trying to do things for the betterment of humankind.
Yeah.
So it turns out he's the actual demon slayer.
Mm-hmm.
And if he can kill the last one of this particular type of demon, his soul will be set free. So this brings us back to like that cursed object.
Right.
So his soul has been trapped in a dummy so that he can live eternally to like destroy this species that as a hunter he wasn't able to kill in his time.
Right.
Which is, kind of neat.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It was a very good twist.
Yeah.
But don't take our word for it. Watch the episode,
Mm-hmm.
especially since the character interactions and the realness of having to be part of a talent show is just so good.
It's the only episode so far that I've actually kept on my PVR. Like, usually as I watch, I delete to free up more space.
And a lot of the early season 1 stuff is not as good, but man, this one's a real solid episode.
I like this one.
It's a good introduction to the cast and how they interact and like what the premise of the show is without being like too weak and too cheesy and too kind of It's a real solid one, and we're not going to spoil it by telling you who the demon actually is. You just got to watch that one and figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, the Seinfeld has an episode.
No, this is like totally new to me. I had no idea because I have seen Seinfeld.
Oh yeah,
and I've seen it a lot.
And
I had no idea they had a ventriloquist dummy episode.
I was watching it as it was airing, and my sister and my husband are both Seinfeld fans. The episode is The Chicken Rooster. Roaster. Season 8, episode 8, and that aired in 1996.
Wow.
We should have known about that. And Alf. Alf was a puppet.
And again, and I've seen Elf, but like never thought to mention it. But like there's also like the Muppets and different things like that.
Yeah, but the episode where they do ventriloquism is called I'm Your Puppet. So it's like a puppet that's speaking like on the same Jim Henson scale with Sesame Street and the Muppets and Fraggle Rock.
That you're supposed to believe as a character.
Yeah, and people are interacting with it like there's nobody underneath. Sorry, spoiler.
But in case you weren't aware.
Yeah, right? But that episode, I'm Your Puppet, aired in 1988, so that might not be something we remember, not being very old at that time.
But definitely saw the repeats in the 90s. And that to me is like a pretty interesting one, and one I've forgotten about until you mentioned it, and then I like sort of started to remember it, whereas like I completely blanked on the Seinfeld one.
I remember Elf eats cats.
Right? That's and he liked Baked Alaska, the dad in that show. I think those are two strange random things I remember about Elf. But anyway.
Yes. The next one's really interesting for me. First of all, it's called Friday the 13th, and no, it's not the movie. There's actually a TV series that aired by the same name.
And this is also totally new to me. I had no idea they made a Friday the 13th series.
And I'm going to get on YouTube and see if I can find any clips to kind of get a feel for what the show is. The series aired from 1987 to 1990.
So it's definitely something that was like as we were just first starting to watch horror growing up.
Yeah, but I think we might have been too young for
a little too young. But it was like around 91-ish I was starting to like come into watching more creepier stuff.
Yeah, but I was watching Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps and Rescue 911. I don't know if Friday the 13th would have...
No, it would have come up.
Yeah.
But like Tales from the Crypt and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think they just put on any repeats. Or if they did, it was like way late in the nighttime.
Yeah, it would have been like way past our bedtimes.
Yes. Another one is the Toy Story 4 that was released this year, 2019. We haven't seen this one yet.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
But it was on the Wikipedia list that I got my information from.
Oh, okay, so like it's listed as like being a movie with dummies in it.
Yeah. So this is the one with the spork.
Ah, gotcha. Oh, right, yeah, and this is it's kind of interesting in general because in this, like, it does that classic toys come to life.
Yeah.
And while we're on the subject of classic toys come to life things and have their own personalities and do things when you're not quite there, Small Soldiers, guys. You need to watch Small Soldiers. It is every cheesy, awesome, excellent thriller horror type thing in one movie where things go horrifically wrong.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, it's very much a nature versus the military sort of setup, but it's very good.
It is, yes. Also, Doctor Who. There's various episodes. Now, Wikipedia didn't list the specific episodes, and I know there's many
Doctor Who has been around. It's like one of the longest running shows in history.
Yeah.
Period.
So it's various episodes throughout the Doctor Who lifespan.
So on that note, anybody who knows Doctor Who and is familiar with watching it and wants to engage with us and like have a good old discussion on Twitter, or like I would say here in the comments, but on Twitter or Goodreads or something like that, and wants to like really chat up with us about different episodes of Doctor Who that have the dummies in them and what the premises are and like things you think people might find interesting, do that and use our hashtag GBC Ghost Next Door.
Yes, because I haven't seen a Doctor Who episode. I need to be schooled on Doctor Who because it's really popular and I've been told I would like it. But I've yet to sit down.
I've been told the same thing, and I've yet to sit down and really watch it. So we're in the exact same boat. We've never seen Doctor Who. I know enough about it. Like, I know about the Weeping Angels and K9 and the TARDIS and Larger on the Inside and all of those things and the Sonic Screwdriver because it's so much in pop culture and referenced in so many other shows and other things that I can't avoid a basic knowledge of what it is and what it does.
Right, but that's where it stops.
Yeah.
One of my favorite shows as a child is Lamb Chop's Play Along.
Yes. That is where we learned the most annoying song in the world. This is the song that never ends. Yes, it goes on and on, my friend. Some people started singing it, not knowing what it was, and they'll continue singing it forever just because this is the song that... Anyways.
Yes, so I dug up my Lamb Chop puppet, which I still have, and it is now sitting in the toy room.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah, Lamb Chop was really good and funny. All of the puppets were puns.
Yes.
It was done by Sherry Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw her lips move, but it didn't matter.
Yeah. She was just so good, and she had that song.
Yeah, that song that never ended.
Yeah. And I started watching her around the same time I started watching, I guess, like the Muppets, because like the Muppet Show was on, and Sesame Street. And in the bio for Jim Henson, one of his regrets was not being able to get Sherry Lee Lewis on his show.
Yes.
And that
because
was just
he was a fan.
He was, and he had so many special guests on the Muppet Show.
And yeah, and all of it was puns. Like so many puns in that. Like even the character names. Like there was a dog named Hush Puppy, a horse named Charlie Horse.
Yeah, and then Lamb Chop.
And Lamb Chop.
If you look at different series of like different shows, if they do the classic musical one, the Halloween, everything goes wrong. Like these trend-setting ones that kind
Bizarro World, all the things that you're used to with your typical TV tropes.
You
right?
will probably find a dummy one.
Yeah. And I mean, some of these weren't dummy specific shows.
No.
They were more so like, these things use puppets to tell stories.
Yeah.
But it's still interesting. And especially with Elf being a puppet show, also having an episode about how things are puppets. Because it's like a little bit meta, and it's also kind of freaky, because it's kind of almost existential, because it's like almost like he's questioning his own existence.
Yeah.
Or well, the show is questioning his own existence.
Exactly.
It's kind of funky.
Now, what I noticed that was missing from the Wikipedia list was Woody the Woodchuck, Joey's character puppet from Full House.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah,
It wasn't on the list.
I totally forgot about that.
And America's Home Videos from way back in the 90s when Bob Saget was doing it, and The Jackalope.
Oh, Joey from...
Yeah, did the voice for it.
Did the voice of the jackalope.
Yeah, but they were missing from the list as, like, ventriloquism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But those are definitely classic things we would have grown up with. If I can ever get a clip of him doing it, and he'll probably never do it for the internet, but Chris does an amazing jackalope voice.
I'm both sad.
We'll just leave it at that because, like, shed a tear, because that's probably never going to be a thing that ends up on camera on the internet.
I'm both sad and happy that they didn't bring the jackalope back for the new rendition of American's Home Videos.
Oh, no, because the jackalope is really a niche thing that could, that could grate, but it also grew on you.
Yeah.
So when we come back, the first book we're going to do is Bride of the Living Dummy.
This is one that we took a lot of notes on.
Yeah, this is one that we wanted to be very sure of and careful with. I'm going to give you a slight content warning now, and I'll give you another one at the start of the video when we do it.
Pack a lunch.
While it's a very good book, and I think we can both say now and, like, spoil it for you, we both really enjoyed it.
We did, yeah.
There are some contextual things that change between books. So there's a couple things that happen in the original print versus the reprint. This is one of the few books, especially one of the few Series 2000 ones, and I think it's because R.L. Stine was such a fan of Slappy in general that he did this. They did a classic reprint version of it, and it's been changed, and it's definitely been changed for the better. Not that the other one was super terrible, but, like, guys, we can't get around it. We're going to have to talk about violence against women in this one when we do it. Because it's sort of over the top, especially given the context of it being a bride, and it's kind of really hard not to view it through the lens of, like, domestic abuse and that kind of stuff. So we're not going to get too heavy or too detailed into that. But we are going to have to mention and talk about it, because the thing we're going to focus on is that context matters and how things appear matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how things change over the years.
Yes.
And of course, this is never a judgment on R.L. Stine himself or anything like that. No. I mean, there's things you can miss, contexts that you maybe don't realize are there until, like, later rereading it, which is why it got revised, right?
But also, he's writing for the audience at the time, and back when these books were written, it wasn't as public, the issue of women's abuse.
Right. And there were a lot of things, too, that weren't necessarily discussed in kids' books. And sometimes, too, like I said, there are context clues that you don't necessarily pick up on, especially if you're not someone who's used to experiencing that.
And kids aren't, usually.
Right. And neither is probably the writer.
Right.
You know, it's really a subtle, they can be a subtle thing, and we'll get into it more and what the exact differences are when we do the book. But honestly, it's something that's just so easy to miss. And, like, even though, and again, I'm going to throw it back to, as an example, when we were upset at Say Cheese and Die Again, it's never a judgment on R.L. Stine, because, like, again, that level of fat phobia and, like, fat shaming was, like, totally normal in the 90s when that was written and published. And that was written and published in the very early 90s.
And this wasn't 10 years ago. This was, like, what?
Almost 20.
Yeah.
So, like, this was a while ago. And were it to be reprinted as a classics, which it hasn't been, and that's probably a main reason why, even though the Say Cheese and Die series was popular. Like, the first one in the series has been a classic reprint, but this one has never gotten the treatment, and it's probably for good reason.
They're probably still working on the rewrite.
you have to be aware of an era in which something is made. Now, that doesn't necessarily make the content great, but reflection and time are things that you really have to take into consideration. And obviously with updates like the Horrorland series, where we read Say Cheese and Die Screaming, that is a far cry different from Say Cheese and Die Again and the route that went in. And you don't see any of those sorts of fat shaming in the newer Horrorland books, at least not so far from what we've read.
Yeah.
And I think that's a sign of the times and like how people are changing with them, and they're thinking more about the types of things that they're writing for children.
Absolutely, yeah. I like it. I can't wait. It's gonna be a fun video.
Yeah, it will be a fun one. We're like really gonna get into it because like there's, as always, we're gonna have classic things like how big is this anyway? Because I got a real good how big is this anyway for that one.
Sweet.
So join us on insert date here, and we'll get into Bride of the Living Dummy.
Yeah.
And until then, reader beware.
You're in for a scare. Right, so that's an upcoming video, right?
Oh, I thought that's the one we were doing.
I don't have my list. I was like thinking about this on the way. And I'm like, is that this video? Should I go back and get my book?
Thought about it.
Thought about it.
hard.
Yeah.
Had a real contemplation.
Yeah.
Did some soul search and decided it'll be fine.
We're good. We're not good.
It's fine.